This past week, the United Church of Christ made history by becoming the first denomination in the country to file a lawsuit challenging a state's laws on marriage equality. The state is North Carolina, where clergy can face criminal charges for performing weddings for couples who don't have a marriage license. The problem, of course, is that North Carolina has a constitutional prohibition on same-gender marriage, hence no chance for a license. The church is challenging the state on free exercise of religion grounds, and I'm joined now by the Reverend Dr. J. Bennett Guess. He is the executive minister of the United Church of Christ local church ministries. Ben, welcome to State of Belief Radio.
Thank you, Dr. Gaddy. It's great to be with you. I'm a great fan of your work and of the work of the Interfaith Alliance.
Well, thank you. I've already said to you off the air how proud I am of the United Church of Christ for taking this action. I wish you would start by talking a little bit about how the North Carolina lawsuit came to be filed.
Well, this lawsuit came about initially because we had some United Church of Christ clergy and clergy from other denominations in North Carolina who were actually organizing marriage junkets, if you will, where they were renting buses and taking couples from their churches in North Carolina to Washington, D.C., so that these couples could be legally married by their pastors who knew them and loved them and cared about them, and the pastors who wanted to be part of one of the most special events in their parishioners' lives, their marriage. And these clergy and couples began asking, understandably, why should the financial and emotional and physical burden fall to us to have to leave behind our communities of faith, our families behind, our sacred spaces behind, in order to go to a strange, far-off place where these couples could have a religious ceremony, but without their community of faith, without their families there with them, and in keeping with the faith and order of the United Church of Christ. It just didn't make sense to them. And add to that, North Carolina's Amendment 1 not only outlaws same-gender marriage, but also civil unions and domestic partnerships. So the state law actually made it illegal, a first-degree criminal misdemeanor, for clergy to perform a marriage ceremony for any couple, as you said, regardless of gender, if they do not possess a state license. We believe that clergypersons should not have to choose between offering pastoral care and religious services to their parishioners and breaking the law, which is what North Carolina is asking our clergy to choose between.
To do. You know, I know that some listener to this program is going to write me or call our listener line and say, you are always talking about the importance of separation of church and state, and now here is a church that's suing a state. So how does the United Church of Christ deal with that? I want you to answer that so I'll know how to answer it.
Well, that is a good question, and marriage is a complicated issue because it has both religious implications and it has legal implications. And we're at a place in this country where we probably need to decide whether we're going to separate those two and whether people are going to get married in places of worship and then separately go to a courthouse to get a legal license. Some of us might say that's the way to resolve this and get the churches out of the legal marrying business. But right now, our laws are intertwined, and clergy act as agents of the state. We have some clergy, many clergy, including myself, have signed a pledge to refuse to do any legal marriages for heterosexual couples until all couples have the freedom to marry. We are at a place where this issue of the restriction of clergy to be able to perform their religious duties by the state is particularly troubling, and that's why we're taking this issue to court in North Carolina. It's really a double standard. The state is saying that it is permissible for religious organizations to do marriages as long as they prescribe to the kinds of marriages that the state of North Carolina, I think, are permissible, while the United Church of Christ has long held to the equality of lesbian and gay people, and it is within the religious tenets of our denomination and other denominations as well that we do these types of religious ceremonies. Let me add to that, Dr. Gaddy. The law in North Carolina also says that even beyond marriage, the semblance of marriage, a religious ceremony that looks like a marriage, if it doesn't have a license, that too is illegal. So the state is not just intervening on our rights to do marriages, but our rights to do religious services. Yeah,
I mean, they are clearly trampling on religious freedom, however you look at it, because they're almost saying you've got to abide by the theology of the legislature. And that's not what the United Church of Christ is going to do, or any other church worth its weight. You're going to follow what is the moral imperative in your tradition.
That's right. The shocking news here for some people is that gay and lesbians can also be committed religious people.
Yeah.
Who have a belief system that is important to them, that we can be committed and active in our places of worship, that we have people in our communities of faith that we love and clergy that are important to us, and we don't want to have to leave all that behind in order to have a legal marriage in another place and in another state. It's been interesting for me to read legal analysts who are swooning over the brilliant legal strategy of the United Church of Christ to turn the religious freedom argument upside down. But I have to tell you, that was not our initial motivation. The initial motivation for us was really that the United Church of Christ has a lot of gay and lesbian people in our congregations, and we want those people to be fully members of our churches and receive the same pastoral care and religious services that we would provide to any other member. And we think to deny them that full access to be a part of our faith community is to deny our church from fully being the kind of church we espouse to be. It limits the United Church of Christ from our free exercise of our religious tenets, which are rooted in a radical inclusive gospel, the radical inclusion that we see lived out in the life of Jesus.
Yeah. Would you put a face to what we're talking about? Talk a minute about the couples that have been wanting to go to D.C. To get married because they can do that there, and why this is so important to them in North Carolina.
I think that's a very important question. On Monday, when we filed the case, we had a press conference, and as a part of that press conference, we had a number of clergy, many from the United Church of Christ, but also a rabbi from the Reformed Jewish tradition, a Lutheran pastor, a UU pastor, and each one of those stood and talked about couples that were important to them within their congregations. And many of our plaintiffs are couples who are active members in faith communities. And they, too, spoke to reporters there about what their church means to them, what their community of faith means to them, what their pastor means to them, and how they long to have a marriage ceremony in their hometown with their pastor, with their clergy, in that beautiful sacred space that they love so much. And while they were grateful that they had the opportunity to go to another state to get married, notwithstanding the fact that the marriage would not be legally valid in North Carolina once they got back home, but it was also degrading from a standpoint that they couldn't get married in the place that was special and meaningful to them. And as religious people, they feel that their free exercise of religion is being trampled upon.
Well, that's very helpful. Are there other religious groups or leaders participating in the lawsuit, or is it at this point just the UCC?
The United Church of Christ is the lead plaintiff, and we are the only denomination tied to the case. But we do have clergy and couple plaintiffs that are representing the UCC, Reformed Judaism, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and Unitarian Universalism. We also have heard from other faith traditions since we have filed this, and we anticipate that some other faith communities might come on board with us, and certainly we expect the faith communities might be a party in terms of filing an amicus brief. I think it's important that regardless of how people stand, where people stand on the issue of marriage equality, that even people in conservative religious traditions might find it troubling that the state has prescribed laws that restrict clergy in this matter. So even people from different walks of life who may not support same-gender marriage, they could equally be troubled by the ways in which the state is telling clergy who they can and cannot bless and what kind of religious services they can or cannot do. It's particularly troubling. And as a church of the Pilgrims, the people who are the successor denomination of those people who came to this country so celebratedly around the free exercise of religion, we like to say we know how to be good Americans, and yes, as good Americans, we think it's important that we stand up on this issue of equal rights pertaining to the free exercise of religion.
Do you know a timeline at all on this case?
Well, the case was filed on Monday in the U.S. District Court in Charlotte. On Tuesday, we learned that the case had been assigned to a judge in that district. We filed both a complaint and a motion for a preliminary injunction, and each one of those will be dealt with separately. We expect the preliminary injunction is what the court will act on sooner than later, because we maintain that our clergy are currently under irreparable harm to their character and to their professional responsibilities due to the marriage laws in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. It's customary that the court will ask the Attorney General in North Carolina, Roy Cooper, to respond to that preliminary injunction request, and he'll probably have 2 to 4 weeks to do that, and then we'll have about 7 days to respond to that, and the judge could rule on that motion for preliminary injunction, hopefully before this summer, and we don't know what the scope of that ruling might be. On the complaint itself, I can tell you that Virginia has a lower court case that has been appealed to the Fourth Circuit on the grounds of the 14th Amendment of equal protection. And in North Carolina, where the ACLU also has a case on similar grounds, the Attorney General of North Carolina has asked for a stay on that case until the Fourth Circuit makes its ruling. We are anticipating that perhaps the Attorney General in North Carolina will ask the court in Charlotte to similarly stay our lawsuit, but we are going to be making the argument that since we are bringing this lawsuit on the basis of the First Amendment and not necessarily the 14th Amendment, mm-hmm. that it's a different case altogether and that it should proceed. We'll just have to wait and see how that plays itself out.
Ben, can our listeners keep up with the case on the website at the UCC?
They sure can. You can go to ucc.org/IDO, which is short for I do stand for religious freedom. If they're Twitter followers or hashtag folks, they can find us at the hashtag free religion. And also on our website, you'll find a number of links to information about background to the case, who the plaintiffs are, ways in which people can get involved and help promote this free exercise of religion movement that we're talking about.
You know, I'm so glad that you all understand that free religion is a redundancy. And I wish more people understood that. Mm-hmm. Ben, I just have about 90 seconds left. You're an ordained minister. You're a married gay man. How has that personal experience informed your work on this issue? When you see this case, this isn't just a case. It's more than that, isn't it? What is it to you?
Well, thank you for that question, because as an openly gay man who is married, I've been in a long-term committed relationship with my partner for 13 years, so it is personal. But it's also personal because I've been a minister for almost 25 years, and I don't know which aspect of my life is more offended by North Carolina's marriage laws, the part that would criminalize me and my spouse's relationship, or the part that would try to relegate me as clergy to second-class status and try to interfere with my ability to bless loving couples that come to me and would seek that blessing. It is a thrilling moment in the life of our country in which we are seeing changes all around us, and it is our hope in the United Church of Christ that we will continue to move toward greater justice for all people, including lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people.
The Reverend Dr. J. Bennett Guess is Executive Minister of the United Church of Christ Local Church Ministries. On Monday, the denomination sued the state of North Carolina over the state's ban on same-gender marriage, arguing that it infringes on UCC clergy's right to freedom of religious expression. Ben, as someone who is very, very tired of the monopoly the religious right has seemed to have on the language of ethics and religious freedom, I am so appreciative of the action that you and your denomination are taking on this. I am glad you were willing to come on and talk with our listeners about it. And you're welcome on State of Belief Radio to update us anytime. We want to know how this comes out.
Well, we would welcome that opportunity, and we will prayerfully be about the next few weeks and months as we await the court's decision. And we thank you for the opportunity to come back again and update your listeners about what's happening.